It's 6 a.m. on the Black Sea. A 37,000-ton oil tanker sits dead in the water. No engine, no GPS transponder, no flag that means anything. The MARQUISE, registered in Cameroon, owned for all practical purposes by nobody, sanctioned by 6 countries, just drifting. The crew isn't worried. Someone's probably making coffee. The radar screen is blank. Nobody in Moscow is answering emails at 6 a.m. anyway. Turn off the beacon, drift out to sea, wait for another tanker to pull up alongside in the dark and offload Russian crude. Nobody watching, nobody logging it. Clean hands all the way to the buyer. Then 2 things hit the stern simultaneously. 2 Ukrainian naval drones, engine room destroyed, propeller assembly gone. The MARQUISE is going nowhere. Not to the rendezvous, not to port, not anywhere. It just became the most expensive piece of floating scrap metal in the eastern Black Sea. This isn't a lucky hit. Ukraine has been hunting Russia's shadow fleet, ship by ship, in the dark, with drones the size of jet skis. And the MARQUISE is not the first one they've sunk. Let's rewind to 2022. Western sanctions land on Russian oil. The G7 slaps on a price cap, $60 a barrel. Any shipping company, insurer, or port that handles Russian crude above that price gets cut off from Western financial systems. This should have been crippling. Russia's economy runs on oil, always has. The joke in Moscow used to be that the budget has 2 columns, oil revenue and everything else. But here's the problem with sanctions. They're only as good as the infrastructure enforcing them. And Russia, with some help from friends in the Gulf, in Asia, and in various maritime registries nobody's ever heard of, built a parallel shipping system from scratch. These vessels are registered under flags of convenience: Cameroon, Gabon, Sierra Leone, Palau. They're insured by obscure firms in places like Dubai that don't answer to Lloyd's of London. They transmit false AIS data, the maritime equivalent of a GPS spoofer. Some just turn the transponder off entirely and go dark. Tracking them becomes guesswork, layered on top of satellite imagery, layered on top of port records that may or may not be accurate. At its peak, analysts estimated Russia's shadow fleet at somewhere between 400 and 600 vessels. It was moving roughly half of all Russian seaborne crude, billions of dollars, every month, funding the war. And open water, it turns out, is exactly where Ukraine has been developing something genuinely new. Ukraine had no functional navy left after 2022. Russia still had its flagship, the Moskva, well, until a Neptune missile introduced it to the bottom of the sea in one of the most satisfying plot twists of the entire war. Russia officially blamed a fire and ammunition explosion. The Black Sea disagreed. After that, Kyiv basically gave up on surface warships and asked a different question. What if we didn't need them? The answer was the Magura 5.5. It's about 5 meters long, carries a 300-kilogram warhead, top speed somewhere around 80 kilometers per hour, and it operates autonomously or semi-autonomously, guided by satellite data and onboard sensors from hundreds of kilometers away. No crew, no risk, no radar cross-section worth mentioning. The Sea Baby variant, the one Ukraine's GUR intelligence directorate developed, came with upgraded warheads and in some configurations an ability to launch Sidewinder missiles. Yes, a fiberglass boat with a Sidewinder missile shooting down a Su-30 SM fighter jet. That actually happened in 2024. The Russian Air Force spent decades and billions of rubles building one of the most capable air superiority platforms on Earth, and a glorified jet ski killed one. You genuinely cannot put a price on that. The operational range is the part that keeps Russian naval planners awake. These drones were first used against Crimea, against the Kerch Bridge, against Black Sea Fleet warships in Sevastopol Harbor. But the range keeps extending. The MARQUISE was hit 210 kilometers southeast of Tuapse. That's deep Russian maritime territory, not some contested coastal stretch. It means no tanker anywhere in the Black Sea is safe just by virtue of being far from Ukrainian-controlled waters. Russia tried to respond by stationing patrol boats, helicopters, setting up radar pickets. The drones found the radar gaps and used them. Before the MARQUISE, there was the Altura, March 26, 2026. And this one was different in a way that genuinely alarmed people. The Altura was a Sierra Leone flag tanker owned by a Turkish shipping company, Pergamon. It had loaded approximately 1 million barrels of Russian crude at Novorossiysk and was bound for India. The crew of 27 were all Turkish nationals, and it was hit approximately 14 to 15 nautical miles from the Bosphorus Strait. The Bosphorus splits Istanbul in two. This tanker was struck close enough that residents of the city could, in principle, have seen smoke on the horizon. Turkish Transport Minister Ust-Luga confirmed the attack. An explosion in the engine room, he said, and dispatched rescue tugs. All 27 crew members got out safely. Erdogan has spent 3 years trying to play both sides, selling drones to Ukraine, allowing Russian oil through the Bosphorus, presenting himself as the indispensable mediator. It's a profitable position. The Altura hit made it suddenly uncomfortable because the tanker was Turkish-owned, Turkish crewed, and Ukraine hit it anyway. Kiev's message was not subtle. We don't care whose flag it sails under if it's carrying Russian oil. Ankara was furious. NATO said nothing useful, mostly because nobody could agree on what useful would even look like in this situation. It did trigger something arguably more damaging for Russia. Lloyd's and major maritime insurers quietly repriced Black Sea Shadow Fleet coverage into the stratosphere. Insurance premiums for sanctioned tankers operating in the region reportedly jumped by 300% within weeks. At that point, it's not insurance, it's a ransom note. Russia's Shadow Fleet suddenly had a math problem. But Ukraine wasn't only hunting tankers at sea. Earlier this year, they went after the infrastructure that fills them. In the opening days of March, approximately 200 Ukrainian drones struck Novorossiysk, Russia's primary Black Sea naval base and one of its 2 major oil export terminals. 3 warships were damaged: the minesweeper Valentin Pikul and anti-submarine vessels Yeysk and Kasimov. 3 sailors were killed. The Shashkari's oil terminal, which handles a significant portion of Russian Black Sea crude exports, took direct hits. 6 of 7 loading arms were damaged or destroyed, and a fire burned for hours. Then, on the night of March 23rd to 24th, Ukraine sent 56 drones to Ust-Luga, a major Baltic Sea oil export hub in Russia's Leningrad region. Oil storage tanks ignited, the terminal sealed off. No casualties, but a facility pushing 700,000 barrels per day sitting 800 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory was simply offline. Ukraine does not have a long-range bomber fleet. It does not have cruise missiles with that kind of reach cleared for use. What it has is an industrial drone program run by people who are clearly enjoying their work. Russia can repair loading arms. It cannot make the Black Sea feel safe again. Which brings us back to the MARQUISE, and what makes it genuinely significant beyond the headline. The ship was sanctioned by Ukraine, the United Kingdom, the European Union, Switzerland, New Zealand, and Canada. 6 separate jurisdictions. It was operating with its AIS transponder off, what maritime analysts call going dark. And according to Ukraine's general staff, it was waiting at anchor in open water to be loaded from another vessel at sea. Ukraine's naval drones reached it anyway, 210 kilometers from shore, transponder off, middle of the Black Sea. It did not matter. 2 Magura V5 units hit the stern, engine room gone, propeller rudder assembly destroyed. The MARQUISE is now drifting, immobilized without cargo. No crew casualties. Ukraine's navy is clearly targeting propulsion systems, not people. The engine room, the propeller assembly, the rudder, which is also, not coincidentally, exactly what international law on attacks against sanctioned vessels requires. The choice of stern targeting is tactical as much as it is legal. Hit the bow, and you might rupture cargo tanks and create an environmental catastrophe. Hit the stern, and you disable the ship without spilling oil. It immobilizes without killing, and without the PR nightmare of a Black Sea oil spill washing up on Turkish beaches. Russia has 2 real options here, and both are bad. Option 1, abandon the Shadow Fleet model and absorb the sanctions hit directly. That means accepting the G7 price cap, selling oil at $60 a barrel through legitimate channels, and cutting defense spending accordingly. Not happening. The ruble is already doing things that make economists leave the room. Russia's 2026 defense budget assumed oil revenues well above cap pricing. Option 2. Double down on shadow fleet operations. Better routing, better AIS spoofing, more escorts, more radar pickets. This costs money and introduces operational complexity that a fleet managed largely through shell companies and informal brokers is not well equipped to handle. And it assumes Ukraine's drone range stops where it is now, which, given the trajectory of the last 18 months, seems optimistic. Russia is essentially being asked to outspend an opponent that found a way to make naval warfare cost-effective. That's not a race Moscow knows how to run. There's a third thing happening underneath both of these, which doesn't get enough attention. The shadow fleet works because middlemen are willing to take the risk. Turkish shipping companies who read insurance quotes and do arithmetic. Indian refineries that have procurement managers with families. Chinese importers who answer to state-owned enterprises that do not want to explain to a committee why they're on a US sanctions list. Every time Ukraine hits a sanctioned tanker in open water 200 kilometers from shore with precision drones, the risk calculation for those middlemen shifts. Slightly, then a little more. Insurance gets more expensive. Captains start declining certain routes. The shadow fleet doesn't collapse overnight, but it becomes incrementally more expensive, more unreliable, and more exposed. Step back for a second and look at what Ukraine has actually constructed here. In 2022, every serious military analyst, Western, Russian, independent, would have told you that the Black Sea belonged to whoever had the most surface warships. Russia had them, Ukraine didn't. That analysis was completely correct and also completely irrelevant within about 18 months. What Ukraine did was opt out of the game entirely and build a different one. Naval drones aren't a supplement to a conventional fleet. They're a replacement doctrine, no hull to sink, no crew to lose, no carrier group to track on satellite, just a factory somewhere producing fiberglass hulls, some commercial GPS hardware, a warhead, and a guidance package. A single Kilo-class submarine, Russia's main Black Sea attack sub, cost approximately $300 million. Ukraine is dismantling a fleet Russia spent decades building with the economics of a mid-range SUV fleet. And the thing about cheap asymmetric weapons is that they scale in a way expensive ones don't. Russia cannot escort every tanker, defend every terminal, and patrol every radar gap simultaneously. Ukraine can expand drone production next quarter. The asymmetry is not going to close. It's going to widen. And unlike conventional weapons programs, this one gets cheaper as it scales, because the core technology is commercial hardware, not classified defense contracts. The math does not favor Moscow. The MARQUISE is still out there right now, drifting somewhere southeast of Tuapse. No engine, no propeller. 6 countries sanctioned it, 2 drones sunk it anyway. Putin built an energy empire to fund a land war. Ukraine built jet ski bombs to dismantle it, ship by ship, in the dark, 200 kilometers from shore, with no crew at risk and no invoice large enough to matter. The MARQUISE is still drifting. The next one is already out there. Ukraine knows where it is.